What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and we gotta come back to this show now. I can't hide my excitement. Okay. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, Episode 1, The New Deal. I knew I had to come back to my shows because it's been a while, and I have a little bit of free time right now. Not a whole lot, but, enough to where I can finally catch up on some of my shows. Marvel has a little bit of a break before Loki comes out, so why not? Let's hop into this, try to catch up on some shows as much as I possibly can. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but yeah, figured start off with my favorite show of all time. And yeah, it's great to come back. Thoughts on the first episode? I'm excited. There are still a little bit of... I remember because I had to go back and watch season 6 reviews just to kind of refresh myself because it's been a while. And yeah, that ending came back to me pretty quickly because it's one that's not forgettable, which could be considered a good thing, but it was so bizarre and out of nowhere and just kind of random that it kind of left me with a weird taste. I wasn't really sure how to feel about it. And honestly, I'm still not really sure how I feel about it, because it really did feel as if they had a good ending to last season and then just kind of cut it off and said, all right, jumping into season 7 now, let's go, no time to pause. And they did it in such a way where it felt like it was just instantly over and you didn't have time to react, you didn't have time to figure anything out. And based on what I've seen so far, it feels very much like this is just a whole new story. And there's hardly any connection to last season at all. I mean, sure, the Chronicoms were talked about and talking about, fixing their planet. That was brought up, obviously, but this still feels like it's very much just, completely forget everything that happened between Sarge and Izel. I nearly forgot her name. Pachatutik was Sarge's real name. Forget everything that happened with them because they don't matter anymore. Now we're just focused on the Chronicoms. And it forgets everything to do with, what happened with May at the end of the season. She got stabbed, and now they're just healing her up, and I don't know what's going on with her. That last scene was a little weird. She jumped out of the container, and then she's hiding on the ceiling, and Enoch, for some reason, doesn't look up. He just sort of walks out of the room like, oh no, I can't believe I've done this. And she's looking very evil for some reason. I don't know. That was a little weird, because it seems like they want us to be concerned, but I don't really know why, because all they were doing was just fixing her tissue, and now she's supposed to be evil because of that? I don't know. It seemed like they wanted you to feel some sort of tension or suspense, but they didn't really give a good reason why that was the case. So we'll see what happens with that. I guess something interesting might happen, maybe. But yeah, her story just kind of, I don't know what's going to happen with that now. They brought back Flint from the future, and now he just seems to be gone. Piper, don't know what's going on with her. She lost Davis last season. Don't know where she is in all of this. Yeah, it seems a little weird. They went for half of last season, they went trying to find Fitz, and then they found him, and he and Simmons got to work together, and it seemed like they were finally together, and then all of a sudden they're apart again. It feels like they did a lot of stuff just sort of out of nowhere. They pretty much what was the Rise of Skywalker. That's what it feels like. It feels like they just sort of said, you know what, season 6, push a lot of that aside. We're going into season 7 now. This is what we're focused on. So just flip it all around. And it is a little jarring. So hopefully they have a good reasoning for it. At the moment, it doesn't really feel like they do. It feels like they're just sort of well, we wanted to get onto this story, so we're just going to move it along. So I am a little disappointed by that so far. So we'll see what happens. That's probably the only part of the episode and show right now that I am disappointed in. The rest of it's really fun. This whole idea of being back in time, it's a lot of fun. The Chronicoms are making very intimidating villains like that. Just from that first scene when they take the guy's face, it's nightmare fuel. It's very well done. So the fact that they are very calculating, it feels like they know what they want to do. They know what thread to pull. I don't really know how this is going to play into the rest of the season because it feels like they're probably about to stop them here. I don't know what that means. Are they going to try to go forward in the future and do it again? Are they going to try something else? I don't know. It is kind of one of those things where we don't really know what the entire plan is. We only know that they're just trying to destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. And again, like based on how the timeline works in the Marvel universe, if they just destroy this whole thing like, with S.H.I.E.L.D., does that just basically erase everybody that's trying to stop them, or are we doing it where it's like multiple timelines and this just creates a new timeline where now they don't have to worry about S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore? uh, it feels like it's very much up in the air and we have no idea really what to expect. So I am excited to see what they're going to do with this and how they're going to handle it and what sort of tie-ins we get to see. But yeah, a lot of the stuff in the past right now is pretty interesting. Seeing an earlier version of Koenig played again by Patton Oswalt is pretty funny. Seeing Coulson like geek out about a lot of this old stuff. I mean, it's very in character for him, and it's nice to have Coulson back on the team, even if it is LMD Coulson. It's kind of an interesting concept. I'm not really sure how I feel about it because essentially now life sort of feels meaningless because they just created this sentient LMD who knows he's an LMD, and he's just like, okay, well, I'm fine with that. And he knows he's Coulson, but he knows he's also just a robot. And it's just kind of like, okay, it feels like now you could just do this for anybody and they would be perfectly fine. And you could just create a bunch of LMDs of all of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. So if anybody dies, we'll just send out another one. And that's kind of what we were trying to stop. So I don't know. It's kind of a moral gray area right now with him. And I hope they talk about that a bit more because it kind of got glossed over in this first episode. The stuff with Deke is kind of funny too because you have him again going even further back in time. And I like that idea, because he's already out of time being in our present, and then you take him even further out of time into a time where technology was not really a thing. And it's kind of funny. They play some jokes his way where Mac is like, I know what you're trying to do. No patents. And he's like, I feel kind of targeted, which makes sense because it's Deke. But they're playing his jokes pretty well right now. Like, even though he is kind of just the butt of a lot of jokes, they're still funny and he's still being helpful and useful to the team. So I like that he's got a point for being there. He's not just there to be made fun of all the time. The stuff with just the story right now is kind of fun too because it's an interesting flip on things where they thought they were going back in time to have to save S.H.I.E.L.D., but ironically they have to save the head of Hydra that forms S.H.I.E.L.D., even though it gets taken over by Hydra. So essentially it's kind of an interesting concept. Like, you have to save the bad guys because if you don't, then future is going to get really messed up. Like, sure, they're evil and they're technically Hydra, but if not for Hydra, S.H.I.E.L.D. would not have been formed. And even though it turned out to be a bad thing later on, it still produced a lot of good. So you have to keep the timeline flowing the same. I like that. It's very a fun concept. It's an interesting setup. It's got a lot of intrigue to it. So, yeah, I'm hoping they have more to go off of this. I don't really think it's a concept they can play with for too long, because, again, you stopped him from killing this Freddy guy. They did kill the girl who I'm assuming she's probably going to be somebody. I would hope. And I assume they're going to try to save her, too, because they managed to get her back to Koenig's place before she officially died. But it feels like they're gonna probably stop them pretty early on because it's not like they could just keep stopping them and just stay with this guy all season and just keep him safe all season. Like, that wouldn't really be an interesting story. So I assume probably gonna stop them here, and then maybe they find another thread they can pull at a different timeline, whether it's earlier, whether it's more forward in the future. It's kind of a nice setup for the season. So a lot of that's a lot of fun. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's about it right now. I will say just a little conversation about Fitzsimmons. Of course, I'm disappointed that they decided to separate them again. Not really sure if I buy the reasoning. Because the reasoning is, well, the Chronicoms got Fitz and Simmons together before, so they know how they think, and they've used that against us before, so we have to keep each other separate so that way, we can figure this out on our different sides and it'll help us fight the Chronicoms and they won't know what to expect. I guess, and I don't know. It makes sense, but also I still hate it. It's Like, I understand the concept. I understand they're trying to utilize their individual brains, and they're willing to do things individually that they probably wouldn't do if they were together. Like, I get it, but it's still just, I don't know. You spent so much last season, so much the season before that, and so much the season before that. It's like they're always separated, and they're always trying to find their way back to each other, type of thing. And we've seen it before. Do we have to do it again? I don't know. I, I do like the scenes with Simmons so far because she's showing her ruthlessness. But again, I feel like it's kind of a missed opportunity to just say, well, let's separate them again. Why? Can we just keep them together for more than half a season, please? But anyways, all that being said, that's it for this first episode. So on to the second one. See you there. And now episode 2, Know Your Onions. So, I still like where the story is going. It feels as though, it's going to be pretty much set up like this for, I don't know how long, maybe half the season, maybe the whole season. Who knows? But yeah, essentially the Chronicoms are just, they're going to be writing this time jump, whatever it is, as well. They seem to know a lot more about it. Like when it pops up that there's only 17 minutes left, Simmons seems just as surprised as everybody else. So clearly, even though they're using these time windows, they still don't really know how it works yet. Where I think the Chronicoms know how it works. So essentially, they're just going to be jumping with the rest of the team. And so they're going to have to keep stopping them wherever they're trying to disrupt the future. I'll be curious to see what they're going to do next, because it seemed like they had it all calculated, like this is the one thread that they could pull that would unravel Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. So now that they've failed this, it's like, okay, so are they just going to keep trying? Or it's kind of made it sound like they just wanted to kill the S.H.I.E.L.D. members that were here. I don't know, like, it seems kind of up in the air as far as how the rest of the season is going to play out. But yeah, I mean, it's a decent setup still. I enjoy what they're doing with it. It seems like it's going to be pretty fun to explore the different time periods. I'm assuming it's probably going to be like a decades thing. So next decade will probably be the 40s, and then they'll probably hop to the 50s and then the 60s maybe. Maybe they're going to do it all the way up until the present. I don't know. But yeah, so I like the story. That part's good. Characters so far making the decisions that I expect those characters to make, like when they find out that this is Malik and the idea of if we stop him, we can stop Hydra. Like, I think everybody reacts how they normally would. Daisy, of course she'd want to take down Hydra because she experienced firsthand what Hydra did, when they took over S.H.I.E.L.D. Coulson, of course, being the rational person he is like, no, we can't. Yo-Yo, of course, being the irrational, kind of jumping to conclusions and just making decisions instantly. She's, of course, like, yes, let's do this. Simmons, I don't know. I don't really remember her opinion on it. I think she was more level-headed, just like Coulson. And then, of course, Deke and Mac. Deke gets the orders from Daisy to kill him, and Mac, of course, says, no, we can't. We can't unravel the timeline like this. So I liked all of the character reactions, because it makes sense that they would feel this way. And why not? You have a chance to take down an organization that has killed so many innocent lives. Of course you'd want to take that chance, but at the same time, because of how time works, you don't know whether you're making things better or if it's just going to get 100 times worse because somebody else is going to step in and take over the place of Hydra. So I really like that conflict. It's always been kind of an interesting topic of debate, throughout the years of all of the talk of time travel. If it were real, how would you handle it? It's always been a fun concept to play with, and I think they're doing a good job with it so far. The one thing that really stood out to me, just because of how good the show is, the fighting and the action scenes in this episode weren't the best. And it's not what I'm used to seeing. Like, I'm used to seeing very good fighting and action scenes on the show. First episode was okay, and I think part of it is when you have them fighting in, like, different attire, I do think it can be a little awkward to see them fighting in not their own, like, fighting suits and stuff. But this one especially, the fight between May and Enoch had some really clunky moments, where it's like they're, like doing some really slow movements, and then all of a sudden, like, it cuts and you can clearly tell that all of a sudden the fighting picked up, probably because they started using stunt doubles. And it's just a couple of their motions weren't the best. The shootout at the end seemed a little all over the place. Like, I wasn't really sure where everybody was. They sometimes would shoot, the I don't know what they're called, the phasers, I suppose. They would shoot the phasers at these random boxes that would suddenly just explode. And I'm like, is that where they are? Are they hiding behind those boxes? Like, I don't see them anywhere in the shot. Like, what are they shooting at? And of course, they would shoot at the Chronicoms, and it's like, okay, so what are bullets gonna do? Like, and it seems weird that Daisy's not using her powers either. It feels like that would be something she would do, especially when there's nobody else around that you need to concern yourself about showing. Like, Koenig already knows about all of this stuff. Why would using your powers in front of him mean anything? So it seems weird that they didn't have her use her powers at all in this episode, and she only used it once in the last one. Yo-Yo, it seems like apparently there's something wrong with her, so that's why she's not using her powers. So it's like, okay, that's explained. But why didn't Daisy use her powers then? So, I don't know. It seems a little odd, especially because, like I said, of how good the fighting and the action scenes are in the show. So far, it seems a little slower, and it seems a little awkward, and I'm not used to that. So, hopefully it gets better. Let's see. The random Viola woman didn't seem to really go anywhere. Apparently, she was the one delivering the super soldier serum to Malik, who delivers it to Johann Schmidt. I don't know. I was hoping to at least get like an impersonation. What's his name? The guy who plays Aaron on The Walking Dead. I've forgotten his name now, but he's a fantastic impressionist, and he did the impression of Red Skull for Infinity War and Endgame. I would have loved to at least like heard his voice off screen. Like, he's covered in black and you can't really see who it is, but it kind of looks like Schmidt. God, I'm forgetting the name of the actor now, but I mean, very famous, been in Lord of the Rings and Matrix and all of those. Like, it would have been great just to have a little hint of it, but they didn't even really. Like, Malik just gets picked up in some car and then he drives off and that's it. I was like, oh, missed opportunity there. But yeah, like, it feels like there were a couple other missed opportunities like that. Seeing more about Malik. It seemed like he was actually kind of a relatable guy. Deke even said he's just like me, but then all of a sudden once Deke finds out who he is, he's like, oh, I'm going to shoot you now. And then Malik, he seemed like he is just fighting to try to prove himself, fighting to be somebody. And then at the end, like, in walks Koenig and he just shoots him. He's like, you don't know anything about me. And just all of a sudden turns around and just now he's Wilfred Malik again. It's just, I don't know. It felt like they were trying to do something more with his character, and they just said, never mind. We're gonna make him stay who he is. We're gonna just end it right there. They're not changing the timeline. We're just gonna move on with it. And I kind of felt like they were setting up that they're gonna do something interesting with it. They were gonna try to maybe play with the timeline a little bit. Maybe something would change, and we could see the ramifications of it. But instead, they're like, no. No. We're going to stop that right there. No changing the timeline. Exactly the same. He's going to stay the same person. He's still going to be Malik, and then we're done. So, I am still a little disappointed in some of the decisions being made so far. There's an interesting premise here, and there is still fun, and I am still enjoying it. There's still a lot of good moments in the show. But it feels like there's just something lacking this season so far, and I don't know what it is yet. With May, for some reason, she's an emotionless, basically almost like a robot right now. Like, she sees Coulson, no reaction. She doesn't feel anything right now. I don't know why that is. Apparently, she did actually die for a little bit before they brought her back to life, so maybe her soul left her body, and then they turned the body back on, but the soul's gone. So I don't know if there's going to be something like that involved in this show right now. I don't know. Like, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of possibilities, but it feels like so far they're just taking the safe route. It doesn't feel like they're doing anything super out there or super interesting with it yet. And then also some of the side stories, I'm not really sure I understand why they're doing what they're doing with it yet, and it's just kind of a mess so far. So maybe as the season goes on, it'll start to pick up near the end. But so far, because of how good the show is, my standards are very high, and they're not meeting that standard right now. It's just kind of it's okay. Action's not really fantastic, but it's okay. Story's not really anything fantastic so far, but it's okay. Um, so we'll see what happens, but that's it for this episode. On to the next one. See you there. And finally, of these three, episode 3, Alien Commies from the Future! It's a good title. And there were definitely a lot more good moments in this than, in the past couple episodes, which is good. It's like kind of finding its footing for this season. Still a little iffy, because we do see a little bit more about what the main story is, which is essentially what's going on with the time traveling. And that is that the Chronicoms are going through future, following these time, whatever it's supposed to be. Again, I don't really know exactly how they're doing it, and they haven't showed us much of it yet. But essentially, we're in the same boat as the main characters, which is they don't know exactly how the Chronicoms are doing it either, but they're following like the Chronicon ship and basically using its draft almost to follow them through the future and stuff. So it's an interesting concept again, but I still want a bit more as to what exactly is happening, why they chose to do some of what they're doing. I don't know. It feels like there are some storylines that aren't really amounting to much at the moment, but I hope they do eventually. So one of those is definitely May. We do see her involved a bit more in this episode. She's still very unfeeling, uncaring, until they get into the base, and then we see her in the room with all the gas and a mask on, and she starts freaking out. And I mean, I'll be honest, I have the same reaction sometimes when I go outside currently. Just it's hard to breathe, and it's like we're living in a dystopian future, and it's not really that bad. Whatever. Anyways, but yeah, to see her freaking out so much, don't really know why. And of course, with Yo-Yo, we see her also still not able to use her powers, and not sure if it's because she was infected with the Shrike or what's going on with her. Still just unsure about both of them at the moment. It's kind of ironic that they sent the two most vulnerable, like most most not vulnerable is kind of the right word, but it's not really the one I'm looking for. Messed up is kind of the word I would use right now, because they are both going through some issues at the moment. Yo-Yo not able to use her powers. May literally just got brought back from the dead. So yeah, it's kind of weird that they sent those two in, and then of course they mess up because Yo-Yo can't use her powers. May starts freaking out for whatever reason that we still haven't learned about yet. Not too surprised, honestly. So that's a little weird. The whole side story with the government guy that they brought in, they do end up getting a bit of a key piece of information about how the Helios thing doesn't work unless a Chronicom's plugged into it. But for the most part, they've kind of been tackling some of the whole idea of how back in the day, there's a lot of racism, a lot of sexism and stuff. They've had a couple, subtle jabs here and there, a couple not so subtle jabs here and there. And it felt like this was kind of another way to show that again, with this guy with Mac and with Yo-Yo in the room. Of course, he's talking all big and bad, like, oh, whatever. Like, of course, you have to look at your boy to get some answers and all this stuff. May apparently gets in, he calls her an Oriental, and then it's not until Deke goes in, it's like, yes, a white guy. Now I can talk to you. But even then, he still doesn't really give him anything willingly. He just thinks he's, like, trying to play him. So, I don't know. It just seemed kind of random and very much a side story. So I'm not really sure what the whole point of that was, but as far as everything going on inside the base, I enjoyed it. It was kind of fun to see. They dress up Gemma as Peggy Carter. She's pretending to be her, and then Coulson goes in as well. The whole trying to figure out who has an emotional reaction, some of those bits were really funny. And then, of course, Daniel Sousa shows up. I'm like, that's pretty cool. You'd see him in the show. And, of course, somebody who's worked right next to Peggy, he knows her, so when he sees Gemma, he finds it out. Be curious to see, because at the end of the episode, Coulson, he's on the floor and he got shut off because of the EMP. And of course, Sousa is right there next to him. Again, very odd. Coulson takes the Chronicom that was in the room, takes him out and starts fighting him in the hallway, while Daisy stays in. And I guess she did help Gemma a little bit with the EMP. It still felt weird that she didn't use her powers at all this episode. Like, I don't know. It feels odd that they've only had her use her quick powers once in 3 episodes. Like, I don't know if there's a purpose for that or not, but it feels strange because she has those abilities. She should be using those abilities. Why isn't she using those abilities? Am I missing something? Like, it's very strange to me. But yeah, so Coulson, the whole fight scene in the hallway was actually a lot better than the fight scenes we've seen so far. Even the fight scene with May and Yo-Yo in the Chronicom by the Helios, like, still a couple moments where, I don't know, it feels like they're not really making May as powerful as she was before. I don't know if that's kind of the point because she's still recovering, but it definitely seems like her movements right now are very slow and kind of seem weak. I get the fact she's fighting against the Chronicom, so she's going to be weaker than the Chronicom, but even then, she's strong and she knows how to take on stronger opponents, and it feels like right now she's just sort of like not doing much. So maybe that's part of the story. Maybe it's just editing issues. But let's see. Trying to think if there's anything else though. But yeah, I'm interested to see if Daniel Sousa is going to play much more of a part in this. I could have sworn I saw that Peggy Carter was actually involved in this season. But the fact that they had Gemma just dress up as her kind of makes me feel like that's not the case. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll see eventually whether or not she's going to be involved. This would be the era to have her involved, though, because I'm assuming they're jumping forward again. Because they did talk about that a little bit, how, apparently if they use the monoliths to travel backwards, it takes up more of the monolith power than if they travel forward. So that's why the Chronicoms are doing that too, I suppose. But yeah, it's interesting still. Overall, these 3 episodes, like, it's been interesting to me. It's been fun to watch for the most part, but there's definitely a lot more issues so far, and I really haven't felt so disappointed by the show before. And that's saying a lot, because this is a show that, in my opinion, as soon as season 2 happens, that's where it starts to get really, really good. And from then on, it was still good. It was still fun. It was still enjoyable. Season 6, like, it wasn't, in my opinion, as good as some of the other seasons, but there was still a lot to it. There was a lot of intrigue to it. And then it ends, and it ends so abruptly, and there was kind of disappointment there. And it feels like it's just kind of been riding that disappointment throughout the season so far, where it doesn't really feel like they know what to do with the story from here. So I don't know if there is a plan or if they're just trying to find a way to end it. And they're like, yeah, what better way than traveling through time, and from here on, like, we can just do whatever we want type of thing. But we'll see where it goes from here. I'm still excited. I'm still looking forward to seeing what happens next. I still enjoy the show. It's just story-wise, I feel like there's been a lot of changes and a lot of differences compared to what happened last season. And it feels like so abrupt that I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. But anyways, that's it for these 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe. Future Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.